Here are the top stories for today, the 1st of March 2021. A move closer to recovery, the government rolled out its vaccination of frontliners today. President Rodrigo Duterte may soon place the entire country under the least restrictive modified general community quarantine. The president will wait for the advice of his physician on the vaccine brand he will get. And the Philippine News Agency continues to fulfill its commitment to provide timely, accurate, and reliable news to the public as it celebrates its 48th year. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Our top story tonight, the country moves closer to recovery from the pandemic as the government rolled out its vaccination of frontliners earlier today. Among those who were the first to be inoculated with China's Sinovac jabs are some government officials, medical workers, and uniformed personnel. Marita Moahe reports.
There is finally a glimpse of light at the end of a dark tunnel as the government officially rolled out its COVID-19 vaccination program. Government officials opened a new chapter of the country's pandemic response through the simultaneous rollout of China's Sinovac jabs for medical frontliners in various public hospitals. At the Philippine General Hospital, Food and Drug Administration Director Dr. Eric Domingo and PGH Director Dr. Gerardo Legaspi received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. The PGH has an initial 1,000 doses of jabs to be used in the regular vaccination of its frontliners in the coming days. They will be inoculated with a second dose of COVID-19 vaccines after 4 weeks. The Sinovac jabs can be stored in a regular refrigerator at a temperature of 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. At the Lung Center of the Philippines, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III administered the COVID-19 vaccine to OPD Emergency Room Chief Dr. Eileen Aniceto. Aniceto was the first of 20 hospital personnel to be inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccine. In an interview, she urged the public to be part of the solution in ending the pandemic through getting vaccinated with whatever vaccines are available to help achieve herd immunity at the soonest possible time. At the Veterans Memorial Medical Center, infection control nurse Joel Awit echoed the government's call for the public and his colleagues in the medical field to get vaccinated. He said it is important for them to get an extra layer of protection in helping contain the health crisis. In Camp Crame, medical officers of the Philippine National Police General Hospital were the first to be inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccines. PNP Chief General Debold Sina said some 800 PNP personnel and frontliners will be prioritized in their inoculation drive. Also included in the PNP's priority list are those who will be assigned to assist the Department of Health in administering the vaccines, especially members of the PNP's Medical Reserve Force. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana and Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Cirilito Sobejana embraced the rollout of the COVID-19 jabs at the V. Luna Medical Center in Quezon City. Around 30 military and civilian personnel were given their first dose of COVID-19 vaccines. The hospital has an allocation of 600 doses of Sinovac jabs. The AFP earlier said vaccination is mandatory for all of its personnel, but they will have to pay if they prefer brands other than Sinovac. At the Dr. Jose Rodriguez Memorial Hospital in Tala, Caloocan City, National Task Force Against COVID-19 Deputy Chief Implementer Secretary Vince Dizon got his first shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. Around 178 health workers at the hospital received their first dose of the COVID-19 jabs. Some 500,000 doses from the first batch of Sinovac jabs donated by China, which arrived in the country yesterday, were allotted for medical frontliners. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Moahe.
President Rodrigo Duterte may soon place the entire country under the least restrictive modified general community quarantine as he is firm on reviving the economy amid the pandemic. But he believes it will take 2 more years before the country can achieve herd immunity and return to the pre-pandemic situation. Chris Mundo tells us more.
President Rodrigo Duterte is considering placing the entire country under the least restrictive modified general community quarantine or MGCQ as soon as the country gets enough COVID-19 vaccine doses. Duterte, who personally witnessed the arrival of the initial 600,000 vaccine doses of China-donated Sinovac CoronaVac vaccines to the Philippines, said he needed to reopen the economy because many Filipinos are suffering.
Kung kita ko na marami ng vaccine, open ko na lahat, tanggalin ko na yan. Kung makahit tayo ng 40 million o nandyan na yung vaccine, baski meron tayong mga 20, 30, buksan ko na dahil sa economy.
Duterte said the country might go back to the pre-pandemic level in 2 years when herd immunity is achieved. Metro Manila remains under general community quarantine as well as Apayao, Baguio City, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Batangas, Tacloban City, Iligan City, Davao City, and Lanao del Sur from March 1 to 31. The rest of the country would stay under the least restrictive MGCQ. Meanwhile, travel authority and the medical certificate from the local health unit are no longer required for travel. In a press release, DILG Undersecretary and spokesperson Jonathan Malaya said the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases approved the harmonized national travel protocols for land, air, and sea. He said new protocols are applicable to all LGUs across the country. He also said COVID-19 testing should not be mandatory for domestic travelers, except if the LGU of destination will require testing as a requirement prior to travel. With the harmonized travel regulations, Malaya said, minimum public health standards, which include physical distancing, hand hygiene, cough etiquette, and wearing of face mask and face shields, among others, shall be strictly implemented by the PNP and local authorities. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
Amid calls for President Duterte to be the first to be inoculated in public, the president said he will wait for the advice of his physician on the vaccine brand he will get. In a press conference during the arrival of the initial 600,000 doses of China-made Sinovac COVID-19 vaccines, Duterte said he could not receive the said vaccine because it is not recommended for senior citizens. President Duterte turned 76 on March 28.
Yung mga 70, we have to be careful. Ako naman may doktor ako sarili. She thinks that another brand, I will not mention it, yun na lang ang hihintay ko.
He also told Vice President Leni Robredo, who earlier asked him to get vaccinated first, to go get jabs herself. Meanwhile, Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo said he will get vaccinated at the same time as President Duterte. Go said all he has to do is wait for the decision of the president and his doctor, and will also receive whatever vaccine brand his physician will recommend.
Siya man yung apurado, siya ang mauna. Ako, I cannot just decide. She's young. I am not. I have to defer to my doctor. But I said, on the matter of getting the vaccine, it is my self-preservation will be at issue. Kailangan ko magpabakuna.
Filipino pharmaceutical firm Glovax Biotech has partnered with a Korean vaccine manufacturer to produce the Ucorvac 19 in the Philippines. Glovax said it is in talks with the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, and the Board of Investments for the possible investment for next-generation COVID-19 vaccine production facility. GloVax is the first and only company that brought the vaccine to the country during the AH1N1 swine flu pandemic in 2009 to 2010. The company said it is willing to invest 7 billion pesos for the manufacturing plant and technology transfer costs should the government order 40 million doses of the vaccine. AstraZeneca vaccine arrival to the Philippines will be delayed for another week amid issues of global supply. The Philippines was supposed to receive some 525,600 doses of AstraZeneca coronavirus shots today under COVAX facility.
Meron lang balita kasi, Alex, no?
Opo.
Na hindi matutuloy. Dahil nga ang sabi ng WHO, nagkakaproblema sila sa supply, no?
Okay.
So, maantala daw ng mga 1 linggo.
Okay.
Although kinonfirm nila kahapon na darating bukas ng 12:50.
Okay.
Pero kanina, tumanggap kami ng komunikasyon, nagsasabi, hindi daw matutuloy.
Okay.
Baka abutin ng 1 linggo pa.
General Santos City and other areas in Mindanao will not be left out in the national government's vaccination program for COVID-19. General Santos was earlier identified as among the pilot areas in the country for the COVID-19 vaccination. Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles urged local government units in the area to help convince the public about the importance of the vaccines and getting properly inoculated, as there are still many people who are having doubts about the COVID-19 vaccines. Nograles, who was in the city for its 82nd foundation anniversary, advised LGUs to also scale up their preparations for the rollout of the vaccines. Still to come, President Duterte is determined to terminate the Visiting Forces Agreement the moment he receives proof that the American troops have brought nuclear armaments into the country. Meanwhile, schools in Ilocos gears up for face-to-face classes. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
President Rodrigo Duterte said he would immediately terminate the Visiting Forces Agreement between the Philippines and the United States of America the moment he receives proof that American troops have brought nuclear armaments into the country.
Kung magkagera, and it will surely start, maybe in the theater of war would be the Spratly and China Sea. Katabi lang tayo. Ang unang matamaan, ang Pilipinas. Kasi nandito yung base, nandito yung mga armas nila. The arms are stored everywhere in the Philippines. Baka hindi ninyo alam. I'm warning you that if I get hold of a hard information that the nuclear armaments are here brought by you, I will immediately ask you to go out and I will terminate the Visiting Forces Agreement.
At least 13 barangays in Panay Island have denounced the New People's Army and shown support for the government's campaign against insurgency. More on this and other news from the provinces from Lane Cabagani.
13 barangays in Capiz and Iloilo have joined the list of local government units in Panay Island that have denounced the CPP, NPA, NDF this February. Apart from proclaiming the communist group persona non grata through their respective barangay resolution, the barangay residents also held an indignation activity and burned CPP, NPA flags to mark their withdrawal of support. The villages are among the 49 barangays in Panay Island yet to be declared as cleared from the influence of the communist terrorist groups. In Negros Occidental, the Army's 14th Civil Military Operations Battalion has stepped up its anti-insurgency campaign through the deployment of a mobile audiovisual system in rural communities. Since its launching earlier this February, the mobile facility has been traveling to barangays in Kawayan and Hinobuan towns. The maps shows the recorded interviews of former rebels to raise awareness among youth, especially minors who are targets for the CPP-NPA recruitment. 2 other maps will soon deployed to Cebu and Iloilo once the procurement and installation are completed. Meanwhile, the municipal government of Malapatan Town in Sarangani Province on Friday warned businesses and construction companies they will be banned from operating in the area if they support the New People's Army. Malapatan Mayor Salway Sumbo Jr. ordered an investigation into the reported resurgence of extortion activities by NPA rebels among businesses and construction firms in the area. He advised those that receive extortion letters to just ignore them and report them to the local government, Philippine National Police, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines. In other news, the Police Regional Office 13 ordered a manhunt for an alleged NPA political guide in Agusan del Norte who was evaded arrest for illegal possession of firearms. Menhart Pagaran, a resident of Santiago Town, managed to elude local police who were implementing a search warrant on Friday morning. Police recovered from the suspect's residence assorted firearms and ammunition, a booklet containing subversive information in military and police uniforms. Pagaran is allegedly the political guide of Sandathang Unit Pampropaganda of Guerrilla Front 16A of the NPA's Northeastern Mindanao Regional Committee. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Lid Kabagani.
Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara has assured a fair and impartial probe from the National Bureau of Investigation or NBI in the alleged misencounter between the members of the Quezon City Police and the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency last week. Guevara said the NBI's impartiality in previous investigations, such as the tapioca shipment containing 1.8 billion pesos worth of shabu in 2019, was a testament to its credibility. On Friday, President Duterte ordered the NBI to be the sole agency to investigate the incident near the Ever Gotesco Mall along Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City on February 24. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said separate investigations by the joint panel formed by the PNP and PDEA will no longer proceed. The botched undercover drug bust led to a gunfight that killed 2 policemen, a PDEA agent, and a PDEA informant. The Schools Division of Ilocos Norte is ensuring all schools are prepared for the possible resumption of face-to-face classes. This with the easing of protocols against COVID-19 along with the rollout of the vaccine. Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Officer George Eman Manuel said they are conducting an audit to ensure schools' readiness once the national government allows students to return to the classrooms. Schools Division Superintendent Joan Corpus earlier issued a directive to all primary and secondary schools to ensure cleanliness. On Friday, Governor Matthew Joseph Manotoc shared in a Facebook post that most parents and teachers in the province are in favor of face-to-face classes, particularly in areas with no COVID-19 cases. The governor has pushed for the resumption of face-to-face classes in low-risk areas. In our business news, Indian pharmaceutical companies gave recommendations to help expand their presence in the Philippines despite stringent trade laws in the country. Indian Business Forum Philippine Association Incorporated Director Asim Roy said one of the challenges of pharmaceutical firms in the Philippines is the slow approval of the registration of products. The IBF recommended a premium charge to expedite the process. Roy said products that are approved and registered in markets such as the United States and the European Union should be able to get approval from the Food and Drug Administration within 6 months. He also urged the government to allow Indian pharmaceutical firms to participate in biddings of the Department of Health. Roy said this recommendation should be a high priority in trade discussions between the Philippines and India. Up next, President Rodrigo Duterte says his daughter Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte has no plans of being his successor. And the Philippine news agency continues to fulfill its commitment to provide timely, accurate, and reliable news to the public as it celebrates its 48th year. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
President Rodrigo Duterte says his daughter Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio has no plans of being his successor in the 2022 elections because she wants to focus on raising her 3 children. In a press conference, Duterte said Sara told him that she would not rush herself into running for the country's highest post anytime soon as she wants to focus on her family. She also quoted the president saying she would succeed her father if God wants her to. He also said Sara does not want to run for president because after her term, she would have trouble looking for another job. Last February 24, Duterte maintained that he opposed the idea of letting his daughter follow his footsteps. Sara has repeatedly said she has no plan to run for president in 2022, despite mounting calls for her to join the presidential race. The Department of Tourism is leaving to the local government units of tourism destinations whether to drop the COVID-19 swab tests as an entry requirement for travelers. This following the approval of uniform travel protocols by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases to facilitate travel movement. The task force also instructed LGUs to do away with mandatory quarantine unless the travel exhibits symptoms upon arrival. For destinations requiring RT-PCR tests, the DOT will provide subsidies to help reduce testing costs and encourage travel. Meantime, the DOT reminds tourists to continue practicing health and safety protocols such as wearing of face masks, physical distancing, and hand washing. In sports, the Gilas Pilipinas men will be participating in the FIBA Olympic qualifying tournament. Basketball New Zealand, the domestic governing body for the Tall Blacks, said they have to pull off their national teams in both the 5-on-5 and the 3x3 qualifiers match due to logistic matters. FIBA said the Gilas men would replace New Zealand as the next best team from the Asia-Oceania region in the FIBA World Ranking. The Gilas men will be grouped alongside the Dominican Republic as host country Serbia in Group A of the Belgrade tournament from June 29 to July 4. The Gilas men have already booked a seat in the FIBA 3x3 qualifiers in Graz, Austria, scheduled this May. Today is the 40th anniversary of the Philippine News Agency. Guided by its mandate to provide timely, accurate, and reliable news to the public, the government's Newswire service continues to fulfill this commitment, especially amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
From the era of teletype operations to the digital age, the way news and information are disseminated and consumed has changed a lot. But if there is one thing that will not change, it is the point that news needs to be factual and reliable as it shapes the public's views and moves them to action. For the past 48 years, the Philippine News Agency, the official newswire service of the government, has been unwavering in fulfilling its commitment of delivering relevant and accurate reports and updates on various issues, events, and programs of the government. Under the administration of President Rodrigo Duterte and the leadership of Presidential Communications Secretary Martin Andanar, the news agency has undergone a major facelift as it saw a more user-friendly and modern website. Aside from its Facebook and Twitter pages, PNA launched its daily newscast, PNA Newsroom, in 2017 as part of efforts to keep up with the demand to provide up-to-date stories and reach wider audience on social media.
The DOH is confirming that a 38-year-old female Chinese patient under investigation, or PUI, is positive for the novel coronavirus 2019.
I am placing the entire mainland of Luzon under quarantine.
Almost a year ago, movements were restricted, lives were lost, and the economy was put to a standstill as the coronavirus pandemic started taking a toll on the world. Unfazed by an invisible enemy and the challenges it poses, the PNA continues to deliver relevant updates on the pandemic and news that matters to the people the most.
Given that the media's role is to give out a complete picture of this pandemic, PNA will maximize its full potentials to turn this crisis into something transformative through stories of survival and happiness, resilience, and stories that inspire and aspire. We shall be healers and givers of hope by being purposeful storytellers beyond basic reportage. With or without COVID-19, PNA will always be around for our next purposeful stories. These are stories that inspire change. Happy 48th year, Philippine News Agency.
PNA has been able to publish so far over 7,000 reports about the pandemic since it broke out. Aside from the usual figures on cases and pandemic response of the government and other sectors, the hard-working core of PNA's reporters, editors, and other personnel brings hope through the reportage of stories on healing, survival, and resilience in the new normal. Driven by the passion to serve, the PNA staff will continue to turn words and pictures into stories that inspire change and contribute to recovery at these trying times.
And as we celebrate the 48th anniversary of the PNA, I'd like to greet everybody a very happy anniversary. I'll be going on my 4th year here, and I just want to say that it has been a wonderful experience working with all of my colleagues. It's nice that we were together amid the pandemic and amid all of the difficult challenges that we have faced in 2020, and hoping to be with you through both the good times and the bad times. Happy anniversary, everyone. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. A move closer to recovery, the government rolled out its vaccination of frontliners today. President Rodrigo Duterte may soon place the entire country under the least restrictive modified general community quarantine. The president will wait for the advice of his physician on the vaccine brand he will get. And the Philippine News Agency continues to fulfill its commitment to provide timely, accurate, and reliable news to the public as it celebrates its 48th year. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And today marks another historical moment as we finally do our mass vaccination in the country, and of course for everybody who has been wishing for a light at the end of the tunnel, this is finally the beginning, and I hope everything will be getting better from here. And we'd also like to greet everyone at the PNA a very happy 48th anniversary. Let us hope for the best in the days to come. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day. Happy anniversary again.